everybody. Welcome to the Sharon and Joe show. My name is Sharon.
Hi, my name's Joe.
So Joe and I are coming to you tonight with an audience.
Yes, we have our three wonderful dogs here and four sleeping chickens in the background. And it's Batman and Robin today, me and Sharon.
Yep, so here we are. We're coming at you from Joe's garage with our audience. So hopefully it will stay quiet. If you guys hear any weird noises in the background, you know what it is. It's not us. So tonight, Joe and I thought we would come to you, and we're just going to chit-chat, amongst friends about kind of a deep subject, though, but one we've touched on in the past. Joe, you want to introduce the topic?
Sure, we're going to talk a little bit about the unknown, what Sharon and I have a common belief in, which is spiritual warfare. And we've touched on it in more detail in the past. We did a couple of videos together. I know Sharon did one on the Jezebel spirit, and a couple of others. We did one on blasphemy of the Holy Spirit and the original narcissist, both perspectives from a Christian faith that we have. We wanted to talk more about like an objective view, a neutral view, again, based on our own experience, but maybe one from just a more neutral point of view. I think a good way to start it would be, like, I know you're fiddling around on the internet. What was described as like spiritual warfare?
Yep, I'll get right into that. I just want to say that my son has taught me how to link videos in the description. So I'll link all the videos that Joe and I have done together and that I've done on my own. If you want to go on a little binge watch, hopefully you'll enjoy those. But yeah, so we have spiritual warfare as the concept of fighting against the work of evil forces. And of course, that makes you wonder, well, what's an evil force? So evil, Joe and I spoke about it after looking it up, and we have agreed it's profoundly immoral and wicked, opposition to God, sinful, essentially.
Yeah,
But then, and it brings it right back to God.
Yeah, and you can substitute God for good. The opposite of good is bad, vice versa. But I think evil is more along the lines of the other end of the spectrum, the negative end of the spectrum. Just like a narcissistic personality disorder, there's a spectrum. I think we've all done bad things in the past. Hopefully, many of us are remorseful, have tried to right those wrongs. I believe that some people have done evil things where they truly were remorseful for them and tried to make right their wrongs. But when you're talking about profound and malice and almost like an unchanging way, you have to know what's not evil in order to be able to describe evil. But touching on the realm of spiritual warfare, I would guess, just my guess, that if you took a survey of all the people that had undergone narcissistic abuse and have gotten out, that at least 70 to 75% of them would say there's something far beyond psychology and psychiatry and science, an unknown, that was involved in that transaction. And in my opinion, there's not many survivors I know out there that have undergone it that disagree that it took a power greater than themselves, a God of their understanding, whatever you want to call God or describe that to be. Some people are like the unconscious mind, 70% of it we don't tap into. Others, a neutral view of the universe itself being bigger. But, Einstein said once that the same conscious mind that got you into the problem cannot be the same conscious mind that got you out.
Yeah, that's good. I think, also when you think about evil is something that is, you said it's on the other end of a spectrum. Evil is, I don't know, I feel like evil is different. Evil is profound. It's cruelty. It's not just doing a bad thing. It's literally intentionally harming someone in an extreme way.
Yeah, extreme and profound, like bad intent and malice, but profound and extreme. You could, psychologists can explain it in ways where it's just like, well, you can't take it personal. It's not about you. I get it, The narcissist is just, it's a self-defense mechanism. They're trying to get back at the people that punished them, quote unquote, either real or not perceived from what happened in their childhood. It's just, from my experience in the last 20 years of being married to one of these things and then growing up in a narcissistic home, it was just something much bigger.
I think it's something huge. I always believed in God, but I wasn't an active Christian. So my belief in God would be that, telling you I believe in God, but I wasn't really doing anything. But I wasn't a bad person or anything. However, I this whole thing with my ex changed me. If we're going to go back to the word profound, I was changed in profound ways. I now, there were a few years ago, I would have been embarrassed to say to you, and I wouldn't have believed it anyways. Oh, I believe in demons, because it sounds crazy. It sounds weird, like for somebody to say that. Today, because of things that have happened to me, I say it because I know it's true.
You can't argue with somebody's experience. Some people, they argue and they're like, well, if you go on a narcissistic channel, if you hear demon, just turn it off, they're crazy. Yet those same people, they'll agree to, frequencies, high vibrational, low vibrational, just different things like that could, quote unquote, maybe be measured. But we're talking about an unknown here, and something, at least in my belief, there's just something much bigger than just me and the universe. It's cosmically just all comes together, and it's just, we can't always feel it or see it. And what I've come to realize is that, one, I don't always know what's best for me, but two, some of the most real things are things that can't be seen.
But saying that, we have experienced things that we have seen, things that would be considered supernatural.
It spooks me, you guys. Like about an hour or so ago, I was explaining to Sharon like some of the things that have happened. My mother was an alcoholic, and she was also a narcissist. And I remember at a young age, she was making these faces at me. It scared the living crap out of me. And my dad was there, and he told my mom, like, stop, you're scaring him. I was about 4 or 5 at the time, and he turned around, and she just continued to make these faces at me, almost getting off and scaring me. There was one time my little brother and I, or his kids at the time, were eating dinner. My mom was in her bedroom. She came out in a drunken stupor, like in a rampage, and I couldn't see her because my face was turned away from her. But I saw my brother at the end of the table he was turned white, and he started crying and screaming. And later on that night, I asked him what was wrong, and he said, Mom came out of the bedroom, but she had these demons that were like chasing her, like right behind her as she was coming down the hall. And I've spoken to him on several occasions, and he swears by that, even now to this day, what he experienced, what he saw. There was, and my brother's kind of like me. He's down to earth. He's cool. He's very into like the metaphysical and quantum physics and cool stuff like that. When my mom had passed away, she'd taken her own life. My nephew, his son, his first Christmas, a couple of weeks after that, there was toys going off underneath the tree and around the room, and he was like, you know what? He talked to his wife, my sister-in-law, and like, well, maybe it's my mother, like coming to visit and just say hi. And another thought crossed his mind though, and he was wondering, what if it was like an entity, like in human form, an inhuman like entity that was trying to make as if it was my mom, but it really wasn't. And it kept on going on. It started to worry him. So they got the house blessed by a priest. He's, I think, Catholic, so that's his background, but he blessed every room, and it stopped after that. So growing up in an alcoholic home and dealing with that stuff and having some kind of faith, I had 12 years of Catholic school. I saw all the hypocrisy in religion and Catholicism, but it never stopped me from building a personal relationship with Jesus, how I understood him to be. Let me go back to you, like your childhood a little bit. You mentioned like, your dad making faces and stuff like that. That was kind of like, whoa. And not that that's any kind of, it just brings back like memories looking back at things, and it kind of gives me the heebie-jeebies, but it's good to talk about.
Well, actually, I have two things I want to say, and that's true. My father, it wasn't that he made so much, faces. It was the look he got when he was angry, and it was a terrifying look. And I could see it. I could tell my father was about to lose it because, and it could be anything that happened. It wasn't like something major always had to happen.
Well, he was a narcissist too.
Yes, I guess I shouldn't preface it with that. Yes, he's a narcissist. He would get this look on his face, and it was just pure rage. It would terrify me. It would absolutely terrify me. And it would make it so that I to this day, I have this fear of angry men stemming completely from that.
It was unfounded too. It's not like, oh crap, your little brother set the house on fire. Like this there was no
Oh, it could be
cause.
some minor infraction that you wouldn't go into a rage over. But I want to say also, when you mentioned your brother and how he had the house blessed, I had a very similar thing happen to me. I was having water all over my house. It was literally seeping out of the walls. Like,
This is when you were married, when not your dad, where you live in a house.
oh,
When
I'm
you lived,
sorry.
but when you were
Yes.
married.
Yes, when I was married to my ex, sorry, yes. And this was just a couple of years ago. There was water all over the house. It was leaking from odd areas, like the middle of the floor would just be soaked, and it would smell like urine. And at first I was like, "Oh my gosh, did my dog have any accident?" It wasn't the dog. It would be everywhere, dripping from the center of the walls, like literally the center of the walls. It was like a teardrop coming down. I got so afraid after a while because at first we're thinking there's something really wrong with the house. Um, this stopped after my ex left. It stopped, and I also prayed like your brother. I did it myself, but every room in the house, I got on my knees in every single room in that house and prayed. So with my ex gone and me praying over every room, we never had water again. And this was several years, and we were having it every single day.
You know, when I got older, I'm a recovered alcoholic and addict, and I got sober when I was about 25, and that's where I had the unfortunate, you know, circumstance of meeting my ex. She was in recovery, well, she pretended to be, anyways, and she told me when she was, now this is true, this was like all things she told me at that point what happened to her. So she had severe childhood trauma. Now, there's a lot of narcissists out there, their perceived trauma was they were spoiled brats and never were told they were loved, but they got everything under the sun. Well, in her case, she suffered from severe childhood trauma, and she used to tell me that there was a demon that was chasing her. She'd hide behind her couch. Is and I mistakenly I learned in recovery from alcoholism and drug addiction that those are just symptoms of something deeper. It's like if you had, God forbid, skin cancer and you get blisters on your skin, you could treat the blisters, but the cancer really is the source. Well, as an addict and alcoholic, I realized that the source of my addiction and alcoholism was I had a selfish and self-centered nature about me. Like I was egocentric. I never got that at the beginning because I always shared my booze and my drugs with my friends, but the self-condemnation, the self-pity were all forms of selfishness. Well, I always thought that, okay, maybe she's bipolar, maybe manic depressive, because she relapsed often and she was a heroin addict. So I always was trying to be forgiving, and I had childhood trauma too. That's where my codependency came from. It was the same birth as what brings about narcissism. Um, the point I'm getting at is as we went into this transactionship and we had children, there were times, I swear to God, and I just told you this, I just remembered it. She had night terrors about this demon, but there was times I would wake up and her arms, she'd be on her back and her arms were stretched out towards the ceiling. And it kind of freaked me out, not too bad. And I don't know why, because talking about it now is like, holy, and this happened often. There would be times I'd see her arms starting to raise and she would be talking in her sleep. Um, it's just, I look back, like you talked to me about the shadow that was in your garage, and it's just something much more deeper. And that out of the 20 years of being falsely accused of being emotionally and verbally abusive and the police and all the crap going on, the one time that I really saw it was when I took the last cup of coffee that was in the house at 8 o'clock in the morning. She'd still be asleep. I was going to a meeting. She came out, the rage in the face that she made, it was scary. I was scared. I couldn't, I just couldn't add it up. Like, what the hell did I do? It was just if I did something horrible. And that face and her voice, the only time I ever saw it again was about, what was it, Sharon? About a year ago, I was on the phone with you, and there was a restraining order on her, and she came back to the house and she got out of the car, and the eyes and the face were like she was going to like rip my head off. Now, I'm a 6'2" ex football player. Like I could literally like stomp on her, but and I never did, thank God. But it just scared her. It was something bigger, something more going on.
You know, when you told me that story earlier about her like raising her arms, that actually frightened me. It scared me when you said that. And you've told me lots and lots of stories about her, and there's a lot of stories you'll tell me, and I'll get angry for you, or I'll think she's a jerk, or like, how could she do that? This it frightened me.
Yeah, she used to have all the, she told me, and this was true because she would tell me sometimes when she had a dream, she would, all the people that she knew in her life that died, they'd come and visit her in her dreams. And I was just like, I thought it was kind of special in a way. Like, I don't know. There was times, I know a lot of people do this, but like she'd look at the clock and it'd be 111, 222, 333. And I said, well, why don't you research it? It could be, I believed it could be spiritual mixed with like the electrons in your body, whatever, maybe, or whatever. It could be just a coincidence. But if you look at the devastation and destruction, the malice to an extreme, how else do you not call it evil? Like,
Well, it's also the thing about it is, like when you were telling, like when you were just talking about different things that happened, and there was just something in you that knew that this was not right. This is just something beyond what's normal. That was me too. Like there's a consciousness, the Holy Spirit that tells you this happened to me over and over. I was not super religious. And I mean, really, I was saved from my narcissistic marriage by God. I can't say it any other way.
well, I wanted to say too, I don't think you're religious now. I think religion's for people that are scared to go to hell, and spirituality is for people that have been there. We've been there, and that's a saying that I forgot where I got it from, but it's, I believe the psychology, I believe in the psychology, psychiatry, the science. I also believe in the unknown, like things that we can't explain. Like 400 years ago, a seizure, they were told they were possessed. So I get that kind of stuff. It's the experience on a molecular level was just. If I talk to any survivor or thriver that got through this, they have profoundly changed. They will never be the same. Like hopefully on a good level, that kind of stuff is beyond the narcissist. Like one person doesn't have that kind of power. Then you couple it with, I'm in recovery. I have a lot of character defects and things I got to work on. And you couple that with gaslighting, and then just, they know what they're doing a lot of times. They hide it. They don't want you to see it, so they cover it up with lies. And there's other times where they drifted in and out of consciousness, and you're battling your own demons. With narcissism, it just seems like it's more of a, in some cases, I believe, like a possession versus like the spirit of alcohol or selfishness. It's like more like along those lines, and I think it's the perfect storm when they're growing up.
It's absolutely, it's out of,
It's out of this world.
yeah, exactly. It's extraordinary. That's, I guess, the best way to describe it.
It's like supernatural too.
Yeah,
Like those
supernatural.
words, supernatural, extraordinary, are two adjectives that you use that like it's for the people that don't believe. I don't know many non-believers that have gone through it. Like I don't know.
That's true.
I don't know somebody that survived has been like, well, you know what? I looked it up and I went to a therapist and I psychologically figured it out in my head that, oh, okay, I'm codependent, and then it took a power much greater than Joe to save me.
Well, see, that happened to me too, and so many other people. And I think when you look at it, if you look at it from a spiritual aspect, there is, there are angels, right? They're above humans. We can't fight something like that, like a demon. Like, and if an angel came here and fought me, right? I mean, it would destroy me. But it's the same with a demon. A demon has more power. So my belief on this is that the reason that so many people have a spiritual aspect or spiritual awakening, or believe that they've been saved by God, or whoever else they believe, it's because you cannot fight it on your own. It's not possible.
Yeah, it's not. And no amount of human aid, although it helps, like your loved ones, it's kind of like wanting, and I relate to it so much like an addiction. Um, People loved me and they were like, why don't you stop? Why can't you stop? No amount of love could do it. I was beyond their aid. It had to be something bigger than human that saved me from it. And you could think of an angel as a good energy or bad, however you want to say it, but Buddhists, Hindus, like Taoism, they all believe in this unknown, this spiritual aspect to the universe in our lives.
Well, I think that there, if you think about different things, let's just talk about gravity, right? We know that gravity exists because we see the effects of it. Or wind, right? We can't see the wind,
You
but I
can
know.
feel it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's the same thing with narcissism. It's something that you can feel it. The effects of it are there.
And I think too sometimes as people that have survived and still trying to thrive to still struggle a little bit, like I forget like what I was in the battle with was much more than just my ex. You know, I still have that belief that that thing or those things that were attached to my mom followed me. And, you know, my codependency and my own issues, were the perfect storm to link up with a narcissist. And it wasn't necessarily that narcissist that did it. They were partly responsible, but it was something much bigger than even that. And I forget that. So when I do struggle or when I did recovering, I have to remember it wasn't just for this, there's our friends, they're waking up. I think it was, I could forget sometimes that it was so difficult because it wasn't human the struggle was. It was psychological, spiritual, scientific, whatever. It was a culmination of all those things, not just one category.
It's something huge. I mean, it really is. There's something way outside of human comprehension. There's something, there's a world, there's something that we can't see, but that affects us.
Sharon and I, we share the same faith. This is founded in Christianity, and we both believe in Jesus. We were talking about like if you wanted to get to somebody, what not a better way than to mess around with their kids? And like Sharon and I, our view is God as like he's our father, and we're his children, and like I listened to this lady, Carol something or other, that was talking about demonic possession, and she was brilliant, by the way. But she had mentioned that the one real exorcism that she attended to, the pastor, the priest, whoever the exorcist was, had demanded the demon's name, and it said spite. And I thought about spite, like a pure hatred, like an unjustified hatred, just a spite. When I saw that face on her when I came out, just because I took the last cup of coffee, we had more coffee.
Your ex you're talking about?
Yeah, my ex, when she came out, and the rage and the anger was just, it wasn't even towards me. It was like a spite towards God. It was just spiteful, just a pure black, dark hatred that I've never felt before in my life.
See, I had a similar experience with my ex. I saw this look of pure hate. And it wasn't just that there was this hate. So let me tell you how it was, and then tell me if this is how it was with your ex. There was just his whole face change. It wasn't, if you think about it, it's your facial expressions that really bring you to life. Like a dead person, a lot of dead people look alike because there's no distinction. The face is just totally relaxed.
Yeah.
So with him, there was just a look of absolute hatred in dead eyes. There was nothing there. And then he almost like took off this like serious tone, like just with hatred spewing out of him. Does that make sense?
It was like contorted. And sure, a psychologist say, well, the chemicals in the brain does this, but it was just contorted looking, and I could see it, and I could feel it before she even opened her mouth, and her voice changed.
Yes, I've heard his voice completely different. It wasn't his voice anymore. This happened one time I was talking to him on the phone and he did that. And another time I heard him. It wasn't him. Like it was not him. My daughter heard it too. It was one of the times the police came over, and it wasn't him.
You're saying something like, I'm not scaring you, am I? Or something kind of weird like
Oh
that.
yes, that's what he was talking to her, and he said to her, Paris, I'm not scaring you, am I? And it was like that. He was saying it, and she told me that was the scariest thing that's ever happened to her. She was terrified.
Yeah, so it's not just us. It's just it's something to be reminded of. That's why I think the struggle is so difficult, because you're battling your own issues that you had. For me, it was codependency, low self-worth, low self-esteem, staying sober through it. That coupled with gaslighting and just the angle that they get at, is facing your worst fears.
You know, as we were talking about this, I noticed the time is getting a little bit long. Do you want to maybe do like a part 2 for this next week?
Yeah, let's do that. I wanted to talk about, like Sharon and I mentioned a week or two ago, and I was like, you know what, Sharon? Like, getting through this divorce is the greatest accomplishment of my life. And it sounds so like pessimistic and so against our views on marriage, but it's divorcing is becoming detached from this thing, you know? So maybe we talk about that.
It is an accomplishment. I feel exactly the same way. So, hey, guys, why don't you get involved? We'd love to hear your stories, too, because so many people have emailed me or written in other comments that you've had experiences like this, too. And Joe and I will continue on with this conversation. Maybe we'll have an audience or maybe not.
Yeah, hopefully so. And, don't forget to say your prayers tonight when you go to bed, guys. He's watching out after all of us.
And, also while we're making this video, it's actually, again, what time is it? It's almost midnight. It might even be Easter. It's just about Easter. So
it'll be Monday to them, but that's okay.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, I guess that's true. All right, well, Joe, so we'll see you next week to continue on.
Yes, God willing.
All right, well, thank you guys, and I'll see you on Wednesday, and Joe will see you next week. Have a good night, everybody.